responding to the end, but just put them into the chat box on your screen, and we will follow up as time allows at the end of the session. And if we don't get to all of them, yes, we will send you, we will compile them all and send you a list of those questions and answers after the webinar is finished. So you will get a link to the webinar, the questions and answers, and a copy of the slides as well. So with that, we'll proceed on with some of the content of this. What we're going to cover today is a number of different areas, and starting with the community maps. Many of you may be familiar with the community maps, and then maybe some of you aren't. So we'll start with an overview just to make sure we're all on the same page, then look at what we produce, how it's done, what's new in the vector base maps that John indicated, some exciting new news there, the road ahead as into how you can participate if you're not already, and also some resources for follow-up, and then again the question and answer session as well. So first off, what is the community map? The community map is a seamless base map of Canada built from your data. As John indicated, you are the contributors to this. We take information from a variety of sources, such as federal, provincial, municipal contributors, other contributors as well. The data is hosted in the cloud by Esri. It's for free. Anyone with ArcGIS account can access that information. It's built, again, from your contributor data. We'll talk about the hows and wheres later, but also contains a number of different key layers, core layers we call them. Roads, addresses, buildings, parcels, and imagery are probably the things that most people want for their base mapping at the very least. And I'll have a list of some other layers later on in the presentation, but also include some topographic layers as well too. So it's a good solid background information for your base maps. Keyword here I like to start with is authoritative. This is your information, so we go as closest to the source as possible. A question we've had in the past is what happens when you're getting data from federal, provincial, and municipal? Whose data do you use? Well, we'd like to go to what is ever at the closest to the source, which is typically the municipality, but that's not always the case, and we look into that to make sure we do have the best of possible data for you to use. Current data, John said, it nightly updates that we're getting any changes that you create, the differences that you've done from the last time you posted your information, that information goes into the latest build. So you're getting, nothing comes out faster than this information will. Extremely accurate. This is accurate as built on your municipal specifications. So we're getting that information into the system. And as again, it is your information, and it's open to everyone who has an ArcGIS account. They can grab that information anytime, anywhere from a computer. The feedback loop is an important part, and I think Paul's going to talk about a little bit later. We've had instances during the stages here where we get feedback from a municipality about their data. That information is taken, modified, and updated in the very next build. So you get a very fast turnaround on information that's on the base maps that you're going to use. And of course, I mentioned it's free. Benefits are quite varied, and I'd like to point out quite a few of them that are here. Initially, it's your data. So we're not posting information from a variety of different sources and putting up whatever. This is very key information that's coming from you. And so it's up to date and accurate and complete as you make it, and aligns with the rest of your data. So information you want to use from the base map will align with the other information you might be collecting for possibly inspections, web maps, hubs, etc. There's a variety of different ways of using the community maps, base map information, and again, it's going to be aligned with how you're using all the other information. It is a great foundation for community engagement apps, citizen engagement type apps. So that becomes that base map so people can locate where they're at. It could be also your own internal apps as well too. It facilitates rapid development environment. You have one central source of information that people can then access, without having to go search through either multiple departments, multiple sources, multiple areas, all from one area. So it saves you a large amount of time in acquiring data. It also saves you a large amount of time in accessing and putting that data into a central place as well too. So again, it enables alignment and collaboration with adjacent communities. You may want maybe an organization that needs access to information that crosses different municipalities. So it saves you time in accessing and gathering that information as well. What is it that we produce? Well, we produce that base map. Again, that seamless base map that you have, no apparent differences across jurisdictions or around the world for that matter. We work on a standardized approach. We have a data specification I'll give you a link to a little bit later. So that consistency is very important. So as you zoom in and out of the map and around the world, that information will look the same. A standardization, consistent appearance, as I mentioned, and across scales as well too. So if I'm at a large scale or small scale, you're still going to get a consistent look everywhere you pan and zoom. And I mentioned the multi-scale is right as well, from the world level right down to street level, the 1 to 71 scale. So it's extremely accurate and extremely good quality of information that we're producing. You might be wondering what's in the base map. I mentioned a few of those core layers earlier, but there's also that topographic information from natural and man-made features, accessible by the web, different web apps and applications like ArcGIS Pro, etc., and your mobile apps collector, Survey 123. These are types of things so you can access those base map and put it where it is that you need that information. Used as a base map for a number, again, to map different thematic features as well. And again, cycle back to authoritative data. So it's reliable and trustworthy providers such as yourselves. How do we do it? Well, we access that information from a variety of sources. Our favorite sources is the open data sites. These are growing in popularity. We see more posted all the time. And we gather that information from your open data sites, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal. Another way, say when we started this process about 10 years ago, collecting information, it was through map packages, where it published through ArcGIS Online, and we can gather that information. Or in a couple of instances, we actually have direct connection to the contributors' databases. And that's, again, just another possibility. But I guess by far the easiest probably for us, and hopefully for you, is publishing to your open data site. If you're already publishing there, then we can extract that information, minimizing the work on your part. The data is stored in the GeoFoundation exchange. A little bit more on that later, but the exchange is, GFX we call it, is something that we developed in Esri Canada possibly 10 years ago. And again, does a number of different checks along the way. So it checks the data sources, downloads the deltas, so we're not rebuilding the entire base map every single night. We're just uploading the delta differences. So that's why we can do this extremely quickly. It checks incoming data, transformed and stored in a standardized schema. That gives us that common look and feel I mentioned. And then we also do some automated QA checks to make sure everything's just right, and also give feedback to the contributor to make sure if there are any things that are questioned, we can get information and get updates from you. Maybe it's a road classification, maybe it's a different layer information. So we can, again, make those QA checks. Again, have a quick turnaround and updates on a constant basis. So the data you have is constantly improving. And then if there are provincial and federal aggregators, we can access that information such as road networks and directly through the GFX. So it's a very powerful little tool that we've developed to give you access to this information. At a high level, again, very diagrammatically, we've got your municipal, provincial, federal data either coming through open data apps or the other apps that we mentioned before, processed through the GFX, published out through the Community Map of Canada, and consumed by you, the user. Those layers I mentioned, quite varied. We do have quite a few different areas we're interested in. And I think based on the feedback we're getting from the community so far, these are the types of layers that you are publishing as well too. If you are a contributor, maybe at those core layers, possibly we would like to encourage you to expand those layers as well, to look at some of these and see what it is that you can help provide, not just to us, but to your fellow users. As I mentioned, that consistency, we have published a specification. This specification is available on the Community Map website that Paul is going to look at a little later. But there's a specification there, a little zip file. So if you go up to the website, scroll over to the far right of the gallery, you will find this application. So there's the road classifications and then again a basic specification that you can download. And this is the one we use for the publishing of your information, and would also recommend that you use this. This has been aggregated from a number of different sites from things that Esri Inc. has developed, so it's a standard type of look and feel to your data. Quite excited so far. We have around 211 participants in the Community Maps program, but another about 185 currently active providers as well. Again, on our website, you can go up to look at the people who have contributed, right down to the municipal level. So we have content or coverage across Canada, at least at the federal level, but also there's provincial and then distinct municipalities. From our first webinar we did for the existing contributors last month, we've had a lot of excitement and re-engagement with those and looking forward to them expanding their use. And of course, we're trying to encourage you to expand that use as well too. Have one poll question we wanted to reach out to you about. Does your organization have an open data policy? And I am going to just zip over to that. Give you about 30 seconds for this one, if you would. I think we're looking forward. So does yes, no, in progress, or don't know, whatever your response is. We're trying to find out, get a feel for who's using the open data. I think we're going to be requesting, if you can, send us your URL after this webinar as well too, if it's not already published, so we can find out who's doing what and how much. And of course, if there's anything we can do to help with developing an open data site. 20 seconds left on that. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to turn it over to Paul to take over.
Thanks, Barry. Let's get set up here. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about some of the more technical details and about what's new with vector-based maps. Vector-based maps have been around for a few years, and there's a lot of exciting things in there that make it much more user-friendly than previous raster-based maps. Primarily, they are configurable and customizable. You can change the look on them if you don't like the look, as opposed to raster-based maps where you would have to recache the entire base map if you want a different look. You can also localize it according to your language preferences. So in Canada, obviously, we'd be looking at English or French. We can set those, make those settings available, and I got a link at the end of the webinar for that, with instructions for that. But also, vector-based maps also provide dynamic labeling, so that if you rotate the map, for instance, as you see in this little snapshot of a phone, you can see that the map is rotated, but you'll see that the labels on the map remain horizontal. So that's something new that you can't do in raster-based maps. There is also a wide selection of map styles, and I'll talk a little bit about that a bit more shortly. Vector-based maps also produce a sharper image than a raster-based map. You can zoom down to 1:70, and perhaps most important for all of us is that they are faster to build and they are faster to draw. Whereas before, if we were looking to cache the entire country at all scales, in a raster format, we'd be looking at months of production. In a vector format, we can do that within a space of 24 hours. So that's a great improvement there. So current vector-based maps. For those of you who use ArcGIS Online regularly, or even ArcMap or ArcPro, you'll know that there are a number of different base maps that you can select from. A lot of these are already familiar to you. So the World Topographic Street Map, the imagery, the National Geographic map. So these are all available both in raster format and in vector format. So that's nothing new, or shouldn't be new to you. But in the vector format, we have a number of other styles, what we call our creative vector styles. So these are different styles that look a little more artistic, a little different from what you might normally be used to seeing. The thing to note here is that we are drawing on the same cache database that we are drawing for the topographic base map. So the style of the map, it looks different, but the content remains the same, and that's an important thing to note. In addition, if you don't like the style that's currently being offered, we do have a style editor that you can customize your map styles to however you want to look at, however you want it to look at. And so I'm just going to bring up the style editor here. This came out last year, and it's designed to edit your tile styles for your vector maps. So to do that, you log in, and you can select any of these maps. So you can see that there are the standard base maps that we're all familiar with, the World Topographic Map, the OpenStreetMap, for instance, World Street Map. All those maps are available, the grayscale map. There's also the creative styles that I just talked about, so the charted territory, which looks pretty nice at a global scale. And then there are a number of other maps. So Esri has split these up into different components so that there's a base map without any text, for instance. So there's a grayscale base map, a dark grayscale base map. There's also label reference layers. So this is basically labels without any base map. So you can basically create your own base map with the look and feel that you want by sandwiching these layers together. But let's say you want to actually change the style of a light gray canvas map. So you can select that map, you select style, and it opens it up into an editor page. So you have your main map here that shows what your map looks like. And then you have a number of smaller maps, key maps here, that you can see what the map looks like at different scales in different places of the world. So as you change the style in the map, you can see how that will affect your map in various places. So off on the left-hand side here, we've got a number of color swatches and options. Let's say I didn't want to do too much work. Let's say I'm pretty lazy about this, and I wanted something like the grayscale map, but I'm just, kind of lazy, and I want something a little bit different. So I can click on this randomize button here. Basically, that'll randomize the colors on the map. So in this case, it looks pretty green and blue, and if I don't like that, I can change that again. And I can just keep clicking on that until I find something I sort of like. Let's say I kind of like this, but you know what? I want to change the land features from black to something a little lighter, not so heavy looking. So I can just click on either this color swatch next to the land, or I can just click on anywhere on the land here. And you'll notice that all the specifications for that particular feature are now available for you to edit. So you can specify the scale range as visible at, you can specify the color, and I'm going to do that just for a quick demonstration. So I can select red, for instance, and as you can see, it pops up right away, and it looks pretty lurid. So I'm just going to tone this down a bit, and there we go. So sort of looking pinkish there. Please don't look at this as any indication of my cartographic abilities. This is just a quick demonstration of what you can do with this stuff here. So you can see it looks pretty messy in some places, but that's okay. We can also select by color. So for instance, we can select any of these color swatches here. And if I select that color swatch, it basically lists all the features that have that color showing up. So I can actually change the color whole scale for all those features. If I select a green, I can go done. And is it applying? Where is the apply button? There we are, at the bottom, big long list. So it should apply. It doesn't seem to right now. Okay, let's take another one here. Let's make this one, let's do this one green again. Apply. And I think you might have to actually zoom in. There we go. So we got some green features showing up there. There's some green features. So there's lots of options to play around with. You also got the different layers. So if you know exactly what you want to do, you can break out any of these groups. The land use, for instance, you can go right down to retail areas if you wanted to. You can change the color on the retail areas if you were that concerned about it and you want them to stand out. They'll stand out if that's available on the map. Or what I find is easier sometimes if you're just looking at the map and let's say you want to click on that area. We got the urban fill. We want to change the urban fill. Let's make that a nice bright yellow because, there we go. Well, greenish. But you get the idea. You can, with a few steps, you can immediately change the look of your map. And just remember that this used to be a grayscale map, and now it is a, I don't know what color that is, taupe or pink or whatever. But that's the sort of thing that you can do. So The nice thing is, again, you don't have to do any recaching of your base. You can just use whatever base is available. You change the map style. So if your organization has a set of official colors that you'd want to incorporate on your web map, for instance, you can incorporate that into the map here by going in here and adjusting the color swatches to meet your needs. So that's pretty cool. It's a nice way of doing some cartography online and creating some cool maps. So just back to our PowerPoint here. So as was alluded to before by both John and Barry, we're happy to announce that we've got a new product available for your use, the Community Map of Canada Vector Basemap. So just to give you a little bit of background, up until now, we basically have been working solely on the raster base map that is hosted as part of the World Raster Base Maps by Esri and published on ArcGIS Online. So again, just to take you through that process, the GFX, the GeoFoundation Exchange, is extracting updates from a variety of sources, open data sites, ArcGIS open data sites, other open data sites. Other contributors who do not have an open data site might have put up map packages on ArcGIS Online. In a couple of instances, we've accessed data directly from contributors' database. In all those cases, however, the GFX checks nightly every source that we have to check to see if there are any changes. If it does discover that there are changes, it downloads those changes and incorporates it into the database that it holds. So up until now, in the Community Maps program, the technicians on staff have extracted data from the GFX whenever they're ready to process a community. They've edited and processed that community. So in other words, they've done a little bit of cleanup. They standardized the road classifications, for instance. We'll do some edge matching along the boundaries of a community so that the map looks seamless as you pan across the map. And once that's ready for publication, we send it off. We generate a raster map cache and we send it off to Esri Inc. And they produce a raster cache for the whole world that is published on ArcGIS Online. And that's what the base maps that you access online, that's what you're seeing. As you can see, the process can be a little lengthy. It's 4 to 6 months from the time that we receive data to the time that we can actually get it published. And we've got a lot of feedback from our users saying that that's a little too long, and we tend to agree with them. We'd like to speed up the process, but like I said, when you're caching the entire country in a raster format, it can take quite a while for us to spit out the raster and have that published. So we now have the option of sending data into the vector world base map. So again, it's a similar process to the raster base map, but it's a little faster because we're dealing with vector as opposed to raster. So again, once we're ready to process the community, we extract that data from the GFX, and we do some editing and processing similar to what we were doing with the raster map. So we'll standardize the row classifications, we'll edge match a community, so on and so forth. Then we'll incorporate it into the Esri database, and every 3 weeks, Esri updates the entire world. So they run a cache for the entire world every 3 weeks, and that gets published as a world vector cache on ArcGIS Online. So the process there is a lot faster than the raster base map. So we're looking at a 4 to 8 week turnaround time, depending on when we hit the cycle. So that's a lot faster than the 4 to 6 months for the raster map. So as a result, what we want to do is we want to focus solely on updating our vector base maps. And we, as of this month, we will no longer be updating the raster base map. That's not to say the raster base map won't be available. It will be available. It'll be available for quite a long time. So if you rely on the raster base map, it's still going to be there. Don't worry. It's just not going to be updated regularly like we are doing up until this time. So in its place, because we've got a lot of feedback from our contributors, we're looking to speed up the process even more from the 4 to 8 weeks. So we've now put together the Community Map of Canada vector base map with a turnaround time of 1 to 2 days. So how do we do that, you're probably wondering. Well, again, we rely on the GFX to go to all the open data sites that are available, to hit up all the map packages that are being uploaded to ArcGIS Online. It checks again for any updates or changes, any deltas, downloads those deltas. And every night, it does this for all the contributors to the Community Maps program. It checks all the contributors every night. So any deltas that we have coming through, we incorporate then into a Community Maps database for caching. So every day, every morning, we take a cut of the data that's in the GFX, the most recent cut, and we use that to generate a map cache. It takes us a little less than 24 hours to generate a map cache. We publish that as our Community Map of Canada vector base map, and that gets published on ArcGIS Online. So an organization that updated its open data site, let's say at the end of the day on Monday, that data gets incorporated into our Community Maps database for caching on Tuesday morning, and by Wednesday morning, the changes that are made in that layer that the community published to their open data site will be seen as part of the Community Map of Canada vector base map online and ready for use. So basically, we're looking at 24 to 48 hour turnaround time for when somebody updates their data to when it gets published. So that's pretty exciting. I've been with the Community Maps program for 8 years, and I'd have to say this is probably the most exciting piece of news that I've come across in the last 8 years. I like to say it's the best thing since sliced bread, and sliced bread's been around since 1928. So I think that's really great news. A lot of our customers, a lot of our contributors are really excited about this and are looking to incorporate this into our base map. So just to recap on that, so the Community Map of Canada vector base map is basically created and automatically updated daily with contributor data. We try not to we don't do any edits to the data. Everything is automatically processed. We've got our process, it's all computerized. We've standardized our cartography. We've modeled our cartography after the raster topographic base map, so it's slightly different in look than the current Esri vector base map, topo base map that we have. But it should look familiar to you, and I'll show you an example of what it looks like shortly. And again, contributors who update their open data site will see their data published within 24 to 48 hours. So I think that's really, really good news. So I just want to take you to this site, which is our Community Map of Canada site. I'm just going to get out of my PowerPoint here and bring up my web browser. So this here is our Community Map of Canada site, exchange.maps.arcgis.com. And again, we'll make that link available to you after the webinar or at the end of the webinar. This is a great site for all the information related to the Community Maps program and also the GFX program. So a little bit of an introduction to the Community Map program and what it is and what is the GFX. We've got a couple of dashboards here that show the status of updates to both the Esri World base map and also our Community Map of Canada, as well as our imagery base map. We've also got a Community Map of Canada feedback map, so I'm just going to open that and just give you a quick demonstration of that. So here, basically, this is pulling in our new Community Map of Canada that I've just been talking about. I'm going to log in to contribute here. Just to demonstrate what I can do here. So this is the map that we are producing nightly, and this is the app to add in comments or feedback. So if you're zooming around, looking at the map, you're noticing that there's an issue, for instance. Let's say we're zooming in here and it's like, oh, you're missing my house. We can add feedback for that, and we do that by, we can click on a point here, add that in there. Actually, and why is that not working? Okay, for some reason, there we go. Okay, so let's say missing my house. This is really important. Observation type, you can missing from map, and if you have a picture, you can attach that, and then you can save that. So that feedback comes directly to us. If it's a stylistic issue, we'll take a look at it and correct the problem. If it's a data content issue, what we're going to do is we're going to be forwarding that to the data contributor. So in this case, it'll probably be the City of Winnipeg. That feedback will go directly to the City of Winnipeg. They could take a look at their data. They can determine whether it is in fact a mistake or if it isn't correct. And let's say it is a mistake, they can fix that on their database. They can republish their database to their open data site the next day. And the day after that, that correction is going to be showing up on the map. So that's the ideal turnaround time or turnaround cycle that we're looking at. So again, we're hoping that the feedback will go directly to our contributors and that they will pay attention to that and make any changes that need be. So just to go back to the Community Map of Canada site, here is our vector base map, and before we take a close look at that, I just want to take a look, just show you where the user guides are that Barry pointed out earlier. And in here are some specifications for how to develop a road network, for instance, and the specifications that we're looking for data submissions to the Community Maps program. So take a look at that if you're a contributor. I think there's some worthwhile information in there that we've gleaned from our years of experience working with people across the country to see what works best. So here's our Community Map of Canada vector. Again, it should look fairly similar to what the raster base map looks like. So I'm just going to zoom into the Toronto area, for instance, here. For those of you who are familiar with the raster topographic base map, you'll see that it doesn't look too much different. All the content is there, so we can go all the way down to street level. We see parcels, we see addresses, streets, parks, that sort of information. And just like the raster base map, none of this is queryable. You can't select any of this. It's basically a dumb map that you're looking at. It's just a base map that we're produced here. There's nothing that you can select or download, but it's all there for you to make use of. So again, take a look at it. We've got a couple of blog posts up recently on our blog site that itemizes how you can incorporate the maps into your regular selection of base maps, and we'll make those links available at the end of the webinar. So just to sum up, again, we've got two vector base maps at your disposal. One is the standard Esri World Vector Base Map that covers the entire world. It's the World Topographic Base Map, and as well as all those other styles that I highlighted earlier. So the street maps, the National Geographic, and so on and so forth. So we're looking at a turnaround time of 4 to 8 weeks from receipt of data to actual publication. And then there's the Community Map of Canada Vector Base Map, which is updated more frequently. In fact, it's updated daily. So if you're in a hurry to see your updated data up on the map, then this is the map for you. If you want something that perhaps maybe looks a bit tidier and seamless, then you might want to look at the standard Esri World Vector Base Map. But we're hoping that people make use of both, whatever depending on their needs are. Definitely, I think the Community Map of Canada Vector Base Map meets a lot of the needs that we've heard from our customers in terms of a quicker turnaround time. So the road ahead. So basically, we had our Community Map of Canada Vector Base Map. Our go live date was, in fact, yesterday, April 8th. So it's now ready for production use. So if you want to build a base map with the Community Map of Canada Vector Base Map as your base map, then go right ahead. It's available on ArcGIS Online. A number of other things that we're doing is we're still fine-tuning the map style and content. So you shouldn't see any drastic changes to the map going ahead, but you might see some minor tweaks here and there to just improve the quality of the cartography and the content of the map. We're also working on creating some new map styles, so similar to what Esri has done with the world base maps. We're looking to create perhaps a grayscale map of the community map of Canada and any other number of styles. And we're also working closely with contributors to improve their data. So again, using that feedback tool that we have available and sending them the information about perhaps possible errors on the map so that when the map is published, it's correct and there's no need for anyone to do make any changes. And of course, we're always looking for more contributors to the Community Maps program. Currently, we have about 200, as Barry said, but Canada is a large country and there's lots of communities that are still that still can participate. We're looking to have 100% municipal coverage of the whole country in the near future. So for those of you who are already participating in the community maps, what can you do? Well, if you change your open data site address or if you change your data in your open data, let us know. We try to keep track of all the open data sites that are available across the country. But again, Canada is a large country and sometimes it's hard to keep track of all the new open data initiatives that there are. So please let us know. Send us an email to communitymaps@esri.ca. For those of you who aren't contributors and want to participate, there's a number of options. Again, if you have an open data site, an open data app, we can, if you let us know what that is, we can make use of that. We can incorporate that data directly into the GFX. If you don't have an open data policy or a site, you can still participate by putting together a map package of your data and uploading that to ArcGIS Online. And again, send us email and we'll set you up with that. And also, if you don't have an ArcGIS open data app, you can also make your data available through an open data catalog. Again, the GFX will check that automatically to see if there are any changes, download those changes, and incorporate them into the map. In any case, tell us which way you're looking to contribute, and we'll incorporate your data into the map. So what do we contribute? Well, we first of all contribute our free publishing and hosting services. So we provide the base map free of charge. We host the base map free of charge. You don't need to look after setting up an expensive infrastructure and ensuring that it's available 24/7. We can help you get started setting up your hub or your open data site. We can share best practices and standards for your data that we've learned over the years working with numerous participants across the country. We can provide you with feedback on your data and assist you in helping you to improve that data. We can help you with delivering your data to federal and provincial aggregators. Some of you have to do that, providing it to provincial road network, for instance, or the national road network. We can work with the federal and provincial governments to have them come to the GFX for that one-stop shop to collect all of the data that they need. And we look after the daily creation, publication of a national map from your data. So you don't have to worry about creating that base map. We will do that work for you. As well, as a result of this creation of the national map, we'll have a number of free national base data layers available, for instance, a hillshade layer, feature names, and a few other things. So, Barry, over to you. Maybe you want to tell us about some resources that are available.
Very good. Thank you, Paul. Fantastic news. Things happening. And as Paul says, our aim is to get as many contributors into the program and in the existing ones to expand their work. Just a reminder to enter your questions while we wrap up here. I need to publish my data, don't I? Just a notice, a number of different resources that are available to you. The website that Paul went to, please visit that, and also the Community Maps program itself. So there's links there as to how do I participate, and you can add that information to it. We mentioned the Community Maps at esri.ca email site as well. That is a good place to start. If you have questions and can't find information, please let us know. There's a number of blog sites as well too. If you haven't gone to or aren't tuned into the Esri or Esri Canada blogs, there's a wealth of information there that you should be looking at, not just related to community maps, vector maps, but a wide variety of topics. And just most recently, Paul Heersing's done a couple of different blogs as well, one on announcing the new vector cache, and also one recently that was released yesterday, which I don't have the link for. We will send that to you, is on the how-to of connect with the new vector base map. Information regarding the Living Atlas, public policy information to help you develop those policies, and then the open data site. So if you do not have an open data app, you can go to the esri.com site, download that app, and again, Paul mentioned we will certainly want to offer to help you get that established. Other resources such as documentation, and things like the ArcGIS on references, on setting the regional languages, the vector style editor that Paul showed, a fun little tool to come up with let your creative juices flow on different types of styles, and also, again, the different types of base maps that are available to you. The vector base map information, again, sites on the wheres and hows of the vector base mapping. What are we going to be doing this year? Well, we have a number of different things on the go. Last week, John and I were down in the London User Conference, and I'm heading out to the Thunder Bay one this evening. But also there are different sites we're doing. I'd like to point out the Calgary event where Paul and I will be doing a technical session. That some of you may have joined the one in Toronto last year. We'll be doing that in Calgary, and other ones in the fall as well too. This is just the spring event. I'd like to also point out the training that Esri Canada does. We have a wealth of knowledge there in our trainers that you can tap into as well, either through online or on-site, or on-site here or your site as well, different training. Another session Paul and I will be doing coming up May 1st is the local ERISA chapter has their annual Spatial Conference. It's a 2-day event. We'll be there on May 1st at the Bayview Club in Thornhill. And finally, the different other ways you can access or connect with us through Twitter and Facebook. And I think I have our Twitter links on the next page as well too. And look forward to getting more information and keeping in touch with everyone. So for a wide variety of things, again, we're very excited about this vector base map and looking forward to getting your feedback on it. We've had quite a bit of feedback already, but looking forward to more. So thank you very much on behalf of John, Paul, and myself. We appreciate you taking the time to visit with us on this thing. We do have quite a few questions that we will get to next. And again, encourage you to add that information, keep on those questions going. If we run out of time, I think we're doing pretty well here so far. But we will, if we do run out of time, then we will respond to those later. And again, just a reminder, we'll be sending the links to the webinar, the questions and answers and slides as well too. And with that, let's pop over to the questions. I think there's quite a few technical ones there. Paul, do you want to start with?
Like you to use a schema that we recommend, but it's not necessary. If you publish your data in your own schema, what we do is we take that data. First time around, we field map it to our GeoFoundation Exchange schema. Once that is field mapped, then everything else is automatic. So if there's a delta going on, as long as the schema doesn't change on your end, everything will be field mapped. Another question is, how can an end user determine the data source or contributor? There's a general way of doing that, and I'm just going to share my screen just to show that to you.
You'll need to take.
Yes, actually.
Participants. In a momento, where is Paul? There it is. On its way.